So my story is about my friend. Let's just name him Tom. So Tom and we've been friends for a really long time. And during that time, I really didn't do a good job of like keeping in touch, like keeping in contact and seeing how he's doing and those kind of things. I was just like never really like that was like that important.
Knowing you, James, and kind of like assuming I know who you're talking about, Tom. Well, I from what I know about who I think Tom is.
Wait, Lychee, how do you know Tom and I don't know Tom?
Do you not know who Tom is?
Who's Tom?
Wait, there's no way you don't know who I'm talking about.
Actually, I might know who Tom is.
James, have I met Tom?
No.
Oh, okay, well I'm thinking of someone else.
I think she's met Tom.
Oh, she has.
Oh, then I know.
I think it's really like courageous of Tom to like express their needs, because I think that's a common thing nowadays that people don't know how to express that they need help or they need something from someone. Lychee, do you want to share your memory?
Thinking and their logic of how they got to where they got versus how I got where I got in the story.
Oh, gotcha.
Of the situation.
Sounds like a very complicated process.
Have I met this Tom?
You are the Tom. No, I'm just kidding.
I am the Tom. You're looking at him.
I'm looking at both the Toms, not just...
Oh, you have two Toms?
You got two Toms.
I think everyone has a piece of the pie. Like, same thing with me. Same thing with you, Lychee. Same thing with, like, other people. Same thing with Tom. You know, Tom out there, he has his flaws too, you know? Like, I'm just saying.
I'm talking about does. I'm just kidding.
Tom's our fourth guest tonight.
My memory with this one is actually kind of similar. It's like, it's with perspective and things like that. But it's more with the past girls I dated. Let's just say her name is Tom, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, you dated our Toms? Bro.
Let's just say
her name was Tom. A time when we were criticized.
Hi, welcome to the Memory Club podcast. We're like a book club, but we share our memories instead.
I'm Vit.
And my name is James. So today we have another guest for our episode. Welcome, Lychee.
Hi.
Welcome. Woo! Thanks for joining us today. Lychee.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
It's always a fun time when we have a guest. You know, adds another perspective, adds a new energy, like a kind of a vibe, whatever that the guest brings. You know.
Yeah. And then also, fun fact: Lychee was one of our guest speakers, secret guest speakers, because she helped us test things out.
She was.
So she was pretty much one of the first guest speakers, but you know, it was just testing. But now it's the real deal.
We came up with the name together slightly.
Kind of, yeah. True.
Kind of, yeah. She can have some of the credit, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want the credit. I wanted something else.
Oh,
what do you want?
I'm just kidding. Well, I wanted the pink sweater. What was it? Pink Sweater podcast.
Oh, okay.
Pink Sweater podcast.
Yes, well, Crystal, one of our other friends said it, but anyway, both good names.
Yeah.
Both good names. Because he and I we have a exact same pink sweater that
Yes.
that we have in our closet, but yeah. Maybe one episode, we should do an episode where we're both wearing it.
Oh,
Right.
that would be nice.
Another episode, we're going to do pink sweater. We're going to
Pink
do
sweater. Yeah.
it. Okay. Do you want to...
Today's TMI.
Yeah, go ahead.
So today's TMI is it's like a food that like a lot of people like, but that you don't particularly like.
Yeah.
How about you, Vid? What about you?
So this is gonna be very controversial. So I'm not really okay. It's not that I hate it.
No, just full
it's
send.
more. It's more.
Yeah,
no.
full send,
It's more that you know,
Don't defend yourself.
I'm not like a huge fan of it. Maybe okay. I'll just say it. I'm not a big fan of like Korean food as well. It's like, okay, if I were to choose, okay. See, I already knew the backlash comment.
This guy, does this guy know I'm Korean or what?
Yeah, so it's just like if I were to choose a cuisine, I feel like a lot of other cuisines would go on top. That's the thing for me, you know? So, yeah.
What about it do you not like?
Just pretty much maybe it's just like, okay, like if I want noodles, I'll probably get like Vietnamese noodles or like other types of noodles. Okay. You know what I'm talking about? And yeah, I feel like there's another dish.
What about tofu soup?
Oh, okay. That's one thing I actually I dislike and that people like a lot. I don't like tofu soup.
Oh, it was the tofu soup.
Yeah, it's a tofu soup for me because I just don't like. I think the only thing I like tofu is like if it's fried or like, you know, like if it's fried and it's crispy. That's the only way I like eat tofu. But any other aspects is, I don't know. It's a little miss for me. But maybe I need to explore other like Korean dishes, you know? And I'll probably like more of that. But I do like certain other...
It's too late. It's too late to save yourself, man. It's too late. This guy hates Korean food. This guy hates Korean food. All my Koreans out there, dude.
Hit me up
shoot
with my
him a
DM right now.
Alright, I said shoot him a DM. You
shoot my DM right now. Get in my DM. Say that.
It's just not a real Asian if he doesn't like tofu soup, like, to be honest. That's just shameful.
I don't know. Do you guys like it that much, or how do you guys feel about tofu soup?
I love it, dude.
You like it that much?
Whenever my mom makes it, dude, like, I'm like overeating because like that shit is so good.
Wait, do they not have that much tofu in Vietnamese food? Is that what it is?
No, my mom actually uses tofu a lot, so yeah. I don't think that's the case. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. What about
Never
you?
asking Vit for food recommendations.
Yeah. Yeah, you get at it.
I'm just kidding.
What about you, Lychee?
For me, it's like similar to Vit, where it's an actual full-on ethnicity of cuisine, and I don't like Mediterranean food, personally.
I see.
I'm doing podcasts.
DMs going Lychee's DMs right now.
Inferior palates.
The overall flavor palette of Mediterranean food is just not to my taste, and I really don't like onions. So I feel like they use onions a lot, and just like I'm not a really big falafel person, though I've tried it several times, and like some of their like dips, like the sauces, it's just not my palate. So yeah, the only thing I like is the gyro meat, pretty much, honestly, and rice. Okay, well, I don't know. I'm disappointed in both of you. I love both of those cuisines. But for me, it's not a cuisine. It's like a specific food. I really don't like pickles. So like, that's why like whenever I get pickles on a hamburger, sandwich, anything, like I take them out. I hate them. Which is weird. Which is weird because like Koreans eat pickled food all the time. Like kimchi is technically pickled food. So like I don't know why, but I don't like pickles. It's too salty and too sour. I think that's what it is. It's like I don't like the flavors. Couldn't people say the exact same thing about kimchi?
Exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I grew up eating it. Maybe that's what it is.
Aww.
Yeah, I could see that.
I like pickles in burgers. I think you're missing out.
Yeah, it's like a good add-on. Do you not like...
It's overpowering.
You don't like other pickled things? It's just cucumbers? Pickled?
I don't know if I've tried other pickled food.
What about
have you guys had those like a pickled radish, like the one that comes with like a Korean fried chickens?
I love pickled radish.
Those are good. But it's weird because that shit is also like really salty and sweet and sour, so I don't know. Shit, like I don't know. I don't know what it is about just regular pickles. Dude.
Maybe it's the texture.
Maybe it's the cucumber. Maybe it's the cucumber. Maybe the way. No, it's I don't know.
Do you like Korean pickled cucumbers?
I do.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know. It's just the American pickles. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Do you like sauerkraut? Sauerkraut.
I never tried them.
Oh, okay. You might not like it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe I only like pickled Asian food. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
That's good. You want to get on to our topic of the week? So,
yeah.
The reason why we're doing pretty much this, we have this theme for this week, and you want to introduce that?
Yeah, so like, before I introduce the topic, is the reason, like, normally when we do our TMI is like something like our favorite or like our something that we like, right? But this time we wanted to start out like negative, like something we dislike and start talking shit. Because our topic this week, our topic this time is gonna be like a time when we were criticized, right? It's like when we like were criticized in our life and we had to like make adjustments. How did you guys interpret this?
For me, I chose something. I chose something like criticism that people constantly told me, and that I kind of took, and it kind of like surprised me. That's how I chose my memory. What about you, Leji?
For me, I think I made kind of a looser definition of the theme in terms of thinking of something that had a very big impact on me for perspective shift. So I chose something kind of like over a lot of instances that made me like realize things about myself that changed like my perspective and reality.
Okay.
What about you, James?
I chose a topic that had a big impact on me with my relationship with my friend. It's something that I still kind of try to work on, and something that something because I was aware of it, but then I was never thinking like it was that big of a deal, and then like when they criticized me for it, I was like, okay, I'll try to make adjustment and try to fix that. Yeah. So.
Okay.
So why don't I'll start us off. Okay, I'll start us off with my story. So my story is about my friend. Let's just name him Tom. So Tom and we've been friends for a really long time. And he's like one of my closest friends, right? And we've been friends since high school, and we didn't really we went to the same high school, but then when we went to college, we kind of went to like a college that's like near each other, so we lived fairly close to each other, so we saw each other pretty often, right? But then eventually he moved from West Coast to East Coast, right? So we have a long distance, and we don't really we don't really see each other that much anymore. And during that time, I really didn't do a good job of like keeping in touch, like keeping in contact and seeing how he's doing and those kind of things. I was just like never really like that was like that important. And because I think partially most of my other friends are not like that. I think most of my other friends are kind of very like hands off. They're just like, I see you when I see you and those kind of things. There's no like reason to like, just occasionally just checking in on them. It's like, oh, how are you doing? How you been? What have you been up to? Those kind of things. So like the only time like I really like send him a message or something like that would be like, oh, happy birthday or happy new year, Merry Christmas, those kind of things only, right? And like I think one time he like brought it up to me when we were talking. He's like, oh, like I feel like you don't really like care about this friendship. You don't like really care like about what I'm doing, what I've been up to, and like how like difficult it is to like move to like a place where I don't know anyone. You know, it's like, and like when he told me those things, like my initial thought was like, dude, why is this guy being so needy? So I was
being a baby.
Yeah. And I didn't make a big deal out of it because I thought he also was like saying it, but then like he wasn't also like I didn't know it was that big of an issue for him. Like I still didn't catch it, you know, like catch on to that he was like really like hurt by this. So I just tried to brush it off. I'm like, dude, like what are we in a relationship? Like, dude, like, you know, like it's, you know, like it's like one of those like almost like a toxic masculinity thing where I didn't really acknowledge it, and he got really mad because like, what do you mean like a relationship? And he like got really mad, and we had a fight, and I told him like, you know, like we'll talk about it another time when we're a little bit calmer, right? So once we were calmer, I was like saying these things, and it was like, and then I was like, okay, like I understand, like I realized that like I really need to do a better job of like keeping in touch to know what's going on in his life, because as a friend, you should know what's like what you should keep in touch with your friend to see what's going on in their life and how they're doing and those kind of things regularly. So ever since then, I think I do try to put in more effort, especially with him. I think it also has to be depending on person to person. Like some people are okay just not keeping in touch on a regular and still be cool as a friend. But I think some people, you should definitely do like a lot more, like just, that's just the way of them expressing friendship. And I realized I gotta express that too, you know, because they do that to me. And like, I have to do that. So that's something I try to keep in back of my mind with like, any like a long-standing friendship that I have now. I try to like keep in touch with them by saying like, oh, like, how are you doing? What have you been up to? Especially friendships that I want to maintain. Yeah. What? Have you guys had any situations like that before?
Well, I guess so. Certain people, I think certain people just need have certain needs. And I think it was pretty like courageous of him to express feelings like that, because it kind of could come off as, you know, emotional, and like I would predict like a reaction like what you gave him
Yeah.
to a lot of people, like a lot of guys, you know, because they're like, oh, yeah,
interesting.
They don't really know how to react to a
lot of guys
like
are gonna be like, dude, like, you know, like a lot of guys are gonna be like this dude, what do you mean? Like it's like a toxic masculinity thing. I think that's what it is.
Oh. Wow, that's really interesting, because I feel like for girls it would be the opposite almost, where it's like if my friend reached out to me and said like, hey, I'm hurt that you don't, you know, take the time to nurture a relationship after I left, I would immediately take that as a serious thing. Like I maybe it's a difference of girls and guys in this perspective, and maybe like guys that you guys talk to, but definitely that would be like immediately something that we discuss seriously. So I'm surprised to hear that guys would tend to react more like, wow, what are you doing, kind of a thing. So
I think it's not that guys. I think guys would initially try to brush it off as a joke first. I think so, yeah.
Kind of like part of guy language to be like,
kind of like a
little bit like keep things light, like, hey, like I don't want to hurt your feelings, but like, come on, man, like kind of a thing. Yeah, but also knowing you, James, and kind of like assuming I know who you're talking about, Tom. Well, I from what I know about who I think Tom is, it's someone that you care about a lot and you're close friends with. And, you know, I'm assuming before they moved, you guys had a pretty good, like, one-on-one sort of intimacy to your relationship. So you would kind of expect that to continue when you leave, right? And sort of for that to exist to keep your bonds. But I understand what you're saying, like a lot of your friends don't do that. But it's just like, if, you know, for that person and for someone that I know for you is a close friend, I would assume you would have kind of a different relationship, right? Or
yeah, it just depends on the friendship to friendship. It's like, it just depends on the friends to friends. Like with some people, like I know that they don't care as much to keep in touch as long. Like it's not. Yeah, I don't take it personally. Like if they don't reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, how are you doing?" or check up on me. But that's just me, you know. That's like, and I know some people are like that. So like with those people, I just kind of match the vibe, and then with other people, I match like their vibe, you know. So I think you just gotta be a flexible with your personality. Like I feel like you shouldn't be like, well, my personality is like this, so you gotta adjust to. Like I feel like it's okay for you to be understanding and empathetic and be flexible, you know.
So it sounds like it was your first LDR, and you paid the
that's my
consequences
first LDR,
of not being a good boyfriend, basically.
Yeah. See, you're making a relationship joke too.
Listen, I'm making a joke, but on it, like, because the way it's being framed, but honestly, for girls, I do think, like, if your female friend I mean, it doesn't have to be a guy versus girl thing, but in my experience, if I had, like, someone I was very close to and they moved, I would try to make an effort to, you know, keep in touch, to know how they're doing, and that we still have that heart-to-heart sort of knowledge. But I do understand, because I have high school friends and we know each other, like, in a sense, like the back of our hands, but we like see each other once a year and we barely communicate. But every time we see each other, it's just like it was. But it's true, I don't ask them, like, how are you doing emotionally, etc., etc. So I could also see your point of view, where it's like you assumed like you guys were good, but from his point of view, he was very lost and he needed you and he didn't know how to express that. So it's like more of that sort of a thing. So
wait, Lychee, how do you know Tom and I don't know Tom?
Do you not know who Tom is?
Who's Tom?
Wait, there's no way you don't know who I'm talking about.
Actually, I might know who Tom is, but I don't know.
Wait, am I wrong, James, on who Tom is?
Wait, how do you know who Tom is?
I feel
Tom,
like
I just want to let you know, Tom.
Oh, it's not who I'm thinking of then.
Good job expressing your needs.
Well, do I know Tom, James? Have I met Tom?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm thinking of someone else.
I think she's met Tom.
Oh, she has.
Oh, then I know who it is.
Yeah, you met him.
Then shame on you, James. Then shame on you.
You met him.
She's met Tom.
I forgot. Okay.
Listen.
I've introduced Tom to her.
You tell me that you got some besties. I expect that you're nurturing your relationships, my man.
No, but for real, back to the topic. I think it's really like courageous of Tom to like express their needs, because I think that's a common thing nowadays, that people don't know how to express that they need help or they need something from someone. Like I feel like, at least like with my experience in my life, I feel like most people are like social beings in the sense that we're interconnected and we need things from other people. We need, certain things. So sometimes people just want to come off as like independent and not needy and not, but in reality, that's not the case, where we need things. And it's tough to come to someone and say like, I need this from you. And I think that's really good of Tom to do.
That's very true.
Yeah. And it's good of James to reflect on that and kind of like move forward with that in mind, and also to listen to him and try to, kind of compromise on the relationship in a sense. Mm-hmm. So.
Lychee, don't you have a similar kind of criticism too?
I have a Tom, and I nurture my Tom, so I don't know what to tell you guys.
Oh my God.
But I understand there's some differences, because like, once again, I have high school friends and we know each other so well, but we like barely ever communicate. But the difference is like, the level, all relationships are different. And I am happy that they reached out to you. It probably was partially also from their point of view. They were struggling a lot and they needed you, but they maybe didn't express it for a while, and maybe almost at some points probably didn't realize how much they needed you. Mm-hmm. And so when they finally came to you, they're like, hey, I, didn't get your emotional support and you didn't ask me. So it's kind of like these pent up feelings after a long time. And and it's almost like out of nowhere for you, because you hadn't heard anything. So you're like, oh, like, why are you, like being, so emotional right now over this, out of nowhere kind of a serious subject. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. But you were talking about your experiences too. Do you want to share your memory? And does it relate to kind of like James's memory?
I think the relation is definitely having a perspective shift and trying to incorporate that in kind of like how my future sort of like thinking and considerations when I have interactions. And it is related in terms of like really, and everyone goes through this in life. It's like every kind of relationship you build in any sort of way, you learn something from that existing relationship and social connections. And so I guess like formatting it in our theme, it's kind of like a collective moments. But in the past few years, I've met a lot of people who think very differently than I do and have like a different way of expressing themselves, and just overall thought process. We're all very different people. And so we've talked a lot, and through that, a lot of those differences come up in conversation a lot. And I think the instances I go back to in referencing what I learned is there were moments, and I'll just specify, I guess, on one particular is like, a few years ago, I had interactions with a friend where I felt over time things that they said to me or implied were hurtful, and it just built up over time that they could be seen as like criticisms or just a completely different way of thinking, and also pointing out how they saw me to me than how I saw myself. And over time, this was like, it was like in my heart for someone I talked to a lot. And so when I finally confronted them about it and like talking about like how I felt from the things they said to me, they had a completely different perception of what had happened in the past. And there was just a lot that came from it where when I didn't say anything, and kind of similar to Tom, it did build up a lot, and I had my narrative about the situation and what they did and what they said and how that impacted me and what that was implying from my point of view, and a lot of internalized kind of perception. And once I confronted them, I realized that it was a very good reminder and a very kind of like pulling you out of yourself of objectivity of experiences versus your own narrative and experience, and how those two things truly are separate things. And it does come down to like, those kind of like old standard sayings where it's like there's always two sides to the story and there's also the truth. So I do a lot of instances like that, and a lot of reflecting on these moments really has put more of that concept into my mind of trying to be more objective when there are situations that I get emotional about, and try to see both sides of situations and try to consider the devil's advocate or the possible other side to the perspective that I'm not seeing, and try to evaluate that, especially when it's something I'm very emotional about or reactive towards, and consider these things and evaluate what their side could be, what my side could be, and the balance between the two, and also help me like kind of separate myself from my thoughts and remind myself that I'm not my thoughts and I'm not this narrative. And also another interesting thing is like over time, your perception of your past experiences, your opinion on what happened, and the story that you tell in your head changes. And, if I look back at certain situations, I could have a different point of view about it in 3 years than what I had today or had last year. So
how are you bridging the gap between like their perspective and your perspective?
I don't know. I guess I would be curious what you guys do. For me, it's a lot of like personal deliberation over my point of view, what values it's triggering for me, and like where they're coming from. And honestly, like the best way has to been to analyze it with the person involved and see and follow their thinking and their logic of how they got to where they got versus how I got where I got in the story of the situation.
Sounds like a very complicated process.
Have I met this Tom?
You are the Tom. No, I'm just kidding.
I am the Tom. You're looking at him.
I'm looking at both the Toms, not just...
Oh, you have two Toms?
You got two Toms.
Dang, okay.
I mean, I
Trying to
had to
start a
focus on a
war.
really specific person to explain better in my head what I was trying to say. So it's not really one Tom, but I'm focusing on one Tom. And
Gotcha.
yeah. It's a myriad of Toms.
Okay.
James chose the most basic name. And we're all suffering the consequences. I'm just kidding.
That's the first name that came up in my head.
Wait, so James,
But-
have you kind of dealt with this situation, like similar to Lychee, where your perspective is like totally different from another person's perspective?
Yeah, so I think it depends. I think if that perspective thing is something that's like so critically core values of mine, and it's like opposite of me, and to a point where like I just disrespect you as a person, then for me, then I'm just like, that is you. Like I have zero problem just kicking you out of my life. Like I don't need you in my life. Other than that, then I would always try to either convince them or just kind of accept. I think I've learned to accept them as they are. Like, I think back in the days when I was younger, I wanted to convince people like, no, you have to see it this way. I don't know why you don't see it this. No way. It's this. It's this. You know, it's like this. You know, and I tried really hard to do that, but I think I've realized this. Like, I still do that, but I think before I would never give up, but now I'm just like, okay, well, this person will never see it that way, just because they have their own worldview, they have their own upbringing. You know, even their view is inferior. No, I'm just kidding. But
is he though?
No, I'm kidding.
All right, modem of Chrism. Time to tell James.
I'm kidding. So like, you know, it's I just see that they have different view. I think you can coexist, well, even if you have different views. But I think there is a barrier to your friendship if you guys don't see eye to eye in a lot of different things. You know, like you understand that they don't see the same things, but obviously if you don't see things eye to eye, it's hard for you to get as close to someone that sees eye to eye with you. And I don't know if that's just like a herd mentality, or I don't know if it's like a toxic thing I should fix, but I think if you don't see eye to eye with somebody, you can learn to tolerate them, but I think it's hard for you to become like it's hard, not impossible. It's hard for you to become super close with that person.
I think it's a balance, right? And like everyone considers this when they like make friends, and like how you kind of like figure out who you want to like be close to and nurture, and you know, like who you want to be closer to, who you want to have more as for whatever component they are in your life. And yeah, I don't know, because like for me, it's still a balancing act, and I feel like I go back and forth, and I'm still deliberating a lot on what that means to you. But it's kind of similar where it's like you have core values, and if it truly is something where you just don't agree ethically, morally with their point of view, that's like, you know, kind of a standstill, and that will affect your relationship. But, you know, there are a lot of things, unfortunately, that can be negotiated, so it's hard to, at least for me, make a decision, and it's more about, like, this is why it's this complex process of me and them kind of both dissecting our point of view. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Vit, about this? And do you relate in any way?
I do, but I think it's certain type of people where they're, I guess, very adamant on a certain perspective. But James, you know, like how you said, like, oh, you want other people to see your perspective. Isn't there the other side where, you know, they want you to see their perspective? So like, you guys aren't seeing each other's perspective, really? If you guys are trying to convince?
I think it's no, but the thing is, it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, it's not that I don't understand their perspective. It's that I don't believe their perspective. You know, it's like, it's not that I don't understand what they're saying or what they're coming from. But a lot of the times when I have those arguments about these things with people, it's like I'm trying to argue about
your belief system.
yeah, so like their belief system and why it may be, in my perspective, different or wrong, right? And so like, but I've noticed a lot of times when the argument happens, it's more like I don't know, it's hard to have them change that, you know, like it's just that's that person's core beliefs. And
Gotcha.
But on the flip side, aren't you exactly the same?
yeah,
Where-
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's only fair to think that that person. But I think it doesn't hurt to try to change their mind, because some people are better than me and they're like more open-minded and they're willing to change. So
I mean, I think you can for sure, James. And it really depends on the subject, and everyone.
I think it depends on the subject. I think there are certain things that, yeah, of course, yeah, like the food thing on our TMI, you know, like even though you guys
not serious
don't like
enough, man.
Mediterranean and you guys don't like Korean.
No, don't use that as example. I don't care if you don't like pickles, James. Then don't eat them.
You know, so it's like, but I think it depends. It depends. Yeah, it really is case by case. Because there are certain things that because every friend that you guys have, wouldn't you say there is like some kind of like a flaw that they have, and it may bug you, or you kind of like be like, oh, this person has this flaw, but then you're like overlook them because they're your friend, right?
But is a flaw the same thing as different beliefs and values? You can't.
What if their belief is stemmed from this flaw? You know what I mean? You know.
Do you have an example?
So when that happens, then I'm just like, yo, like.
Do you have
your
a
perspective is coming from this flaw? You know.
What example can you think of for that?
Let me think of an example. Okay, let's see. Let's say I'll use me as an example, right? Like me, like I'm a very free will and like not so much like organization and like schedule and like those kind of personality. So there are times where I need to get things done and like I'm not as organized about those kind of things, right? So let's say I have that flaw in me, right? I have that flaw of like being very disorganized, right? And I tell you about a perspective or like a view or belief that like, oh, like every single project should be done with like just free will and just like free flow energy, right? Then like you might disagree with it and tell me like, yo, James, like, you know, that's not the best idea sometimes. But I'm just like, no, dude, like that's just me, that's my, you know. So like then you want to kind of tell them, you want to try to convince them because you're a friend, right? But then you also accept them for who they are. You know what I mean? It's kind of like those kind of things. Like, so,
yeah. So
like, you know, so if you see someone showing certain perspectives or core belief, and you see that it comes from like a flaw state or from a maybe trauma or different things, you know, then I feel like if you see that, it's hard to not try to convince them, but then you also accept them for who they are. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I think in this example, I see what you're saying, like at the base. But then I guess I come to this place where I'm similar to you, where like I'm definitely not organized. I'm definitely more free flow, free will, etc. But it's not a flaw that you are not organized the same way as the other person. You just are a different person with a different way of doing things. And so to say that it's a flaw is already, like, to me, that's already part of the statement where I would be like, but it's not a flaw.
No, it's a flaw. It has its cons, right? So its flaw is that there are things when I need to get certain things done. And I think it's, okay, here's my perspective on, so it's my belief on something. I think a lot of people believe that, because I think we kind of live in a generation where people want to be accepting, right? Like, we're in an era of, I feel like, where everybody wants to be so accepting of others, right? And I think it's great. I think we definitely lived in, like, before past where it's like so repressed, those kind of things, you know? Like, I feel like, I don't want to get political here, but I feel like a lot of people like, you know, like, I feel like, were repressed to express themselves, and now I think it's more like you are willing to accept people for who they are. It's great, but I think we need to have a perspective that when you do things the way you want to, there are consequences and there are flaws and weaknesses and shortcomings that you do need to fix, right? And I think if you come from a place where like free flowing and like you just kind of do as it feels and comes to you, I think it lacks structure, right? And there are cons and flaws that come with that perspective, right? So from that flawed perspective of that, of course there's pros, right? Of course there's good things about it, but if it comes from a flawed state and you are manifesting like other like ideologies based on that, that personality or core values, then it's hard to, then you want to like try to fix that. You want to help them like see that.
Right. Coming back to this argument though, like, I agree. Like, we should all be working on our weaknesses and strengthening that. There is a strength and weakness to being an organized person versus a not organized person. But I think it just comes back to kind of like what we were, the original subject, right? Where you're saying like, you want to convince them that like about your belief system. But in this case, it's more of a, both of you seeing the other person's, the positive sides of the differences and like coming together more of a thing than like, oh, I need to convince you that my way's better, right? Because I think what you originally were sourcing this from is that you want to convince someone of your belief.
I mean, you do want to convince them of your belief. Otherwise,
no,
how can you not? No, right, because...
So, I think, James, I do agree that there's like pros and cons to, you're more like a flowy person, but then also when you need to get organized, it's kind of it comes off as a flaw because you might not have those like procedures to do that.
Mm-hmm. Which is a perception.
Yeah. But I think it's with everyone. Everyone has a piece of the pie. Like, same thing with me. Same thing with you, Lychee. Same thing with like other people. Same thing with Tom. Tom out there, he has his flaws too, Like, I'm just saying.
I'm talking about does. I'm just kidding.
Tom's our fourth guest tonight.
Everybody has a strength where they do really well in, and they have that perspective. But then they lack, their weakness is their lack of a perspective. So they only have a slice of the pie. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, you only have a slice of the pie. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like what you guys were talking about, core values. And it's like a difference in core values sometimes, like you only have that certain perspective.
Okay, but what if I got a bigger pie?
But you don't have the whole pizza. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just kidding.
But James, this comes back to perception, though. You perceive you have a bigger part of the pie, but is that reality?
Kidding. I was completely. I don't think I have a bigger piece of pie.
I don't believe so. I don't believe you got a bigger piece. I don't know. I think it might not be equal pieces on how you develop yourself. I think you can get a bigger piece of the pie if you develop yourself like really well, but I don't think you're going to ever get the whole pie because, it's just, you're going to need to do every strength. Like everybody's like...
You need to be just like awakened in the mind.
Maybe in the future where all our consciousness is connected, then we'll have the whole piece of the pie, right?
Whole pieces of pie. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I think from how I see James, he wants the other person to see his part of the pie. So he's passionate about proving that, is what it comes down to.
I think so, yeah, because if they saw my piece of pie, they know I'm right. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
All right, let me tell you guys about my piece of the pie, right?
Okay.
Since you guys Since you guys had a good you guys had your share of the pie. So my memory with this one is actually kind of similar. It's like it's with perspective and things like that, but it's more with the past girls I dated. let's just say her name is Tom, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, you dated our Toms, bro.
Let's just say, her
name was Tom,
Tom.
okay? Tom is a unisexual name.
I was dating her. I was dating this person. And I think my ideals is to sort of treat everyone, you know, that phrase where you say like, oh, treat everyone how you want it to be treated, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of take that to an extreme, where in the sense that I'm very, I guess, I treat everyone how I want to be treated, you know? But that comes with some, you know, territory in the sense that when I would be dating certain girls, they would come up to me and give me this criticism where they would tell me, and this is like, similar to their words, right? Where they'll tell me like, hey, I don't feel special enough. Like, you're nice to everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, that's not really being nice to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're saying they don't feel a difference in, I guess, in the relationship because I'm just treating them as, like, how I treat my other friends. But at the time, my perspective was, if I'm treating you well, why does it matter if I'm treating another person well? Because I didn't get it. I didn't get, like, in the end, aren't you being treated well? So, but in reality, it's more about like just how they feel, right? In a sense that if they are having these feelings of like being treated, you know, unequal or whatever, and it's not really like, I could tell them like all the time, like, or like all the things I've done for them or all the things that, you know, I've said to them, all the things that has happened in reality. But it doesn't really matter because it doesn't really change how they feel. So in a sense that I feel like I need to just kind of like differentiate my relationships, because the ideal of, you know, treating everybody equally could come back in the sense that in reality it's detrimental to certain relationships, right? So that's how I felt at the time. And going back to that, I felt like I approached it pretty well in the sense that I made changes and I've changed like how I dealt with like, you know, romantic relationships, in a sense that with like platonic relationships, I felt like I had a like a difference in relationships, but now I guess it's more of a big difference. Would you guys ever get yourself into this, or is this just a me thing? Me and Tom thing.
I think it's a you thing.
Me and Tom thing.
He said, "You're the problem."
Yeah, I think you're the problem.
I'm the problem.
See my perspective on... No, I'm just kidding. I understand where they're coming from, because like, I think it's not a matter of like how they feel. It's a matter of you should treat your significant other special. Because I don't know. I feel like it's impossible for you to, like, let's say you have like energy of 100, right? And if you're just equally distributing all your energy to all your social group, including your girlfriend, I feel like then your girlfriend is gonna feel like she's not getting enough. I feel like your girlfriend, I feel like your significant other, I feel like should receive a little bit more than your friends. I think, like,
showing that they're a priority.
Yeah, they're a priority. I think.
Just like Tom, James.
Just like Tom, yeah. It's like, I think, you know, like, I think even if you don't feel that way, it's a matter of expressing it that way, right? I think, I feel like some people may not feel that way and they express it really well like that, right? And that's why that's wrong too. But I think, maybe in your mind, you're like, this person is really special to me, right? But then, you're right in a sense that like they should feel that they feel special, but I think you should like it's not. I feel like your action shouldn't be like, oh, it's because I want them to feel that way. I think it's more like, I hope you feel that you want to do that for that person. You know,
like
what
the message gets conveyed.
Yeah.
Like I hope you want to do, like, you want to express that, like this person is like really special to me, and I want to show extra like care and attention and intimacy to this person over my friends. I think, right? I feel like, I think it makes, like, you don't have to abandon your friends or anything like that, but like, you know, like, I think showing a little bit more than your friends, I think it makes sense.
But I think it's not like that. It's like I treat.
Yeah, is it like you treated everyone, I need more context, like everyone truly just treat equally? Like if you're in a setting with all your friends and her, you just treated her like a friend, like a homie, and you just split.
It's not like that. I think it was more of a, hey, I feel like, okay, this is how I feel like. I felt like if I didn't do certain things for my friends, that, and I treated her the same way, she might have felt like a little better, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, but she's being treated in both realities. She's being treated both equally. You know what I'm talking about?
Do you have a more specific example?
Yeah.
Like one thing she brought up, like that proved to her, like, hey, this is why I see that you're not treating me differently than other people.
It was more general. It was more of a general example, so I don't. But what about you, Lychee? How do you feel about the topic? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think maybe with more context, I would have more of a solidified opinion, but I think in a more macro sense, it kind of seems like, and you did mention, it seems like maybe there are ways that you expressed that you care about her in this one-on-one and sort of relationship way, but she didn't see it that way. And maybe that was also part of it. And things to you that proved, hey, this is me caring for you, and this is me romantically interested in you. She didn't see those gestures. And maybe it was more of her missing those gestures that you could see on your end. And then thinking about viewing your relationship with your friends and being like, hey, I don't really see a difference in your care for them and me. And it seems to be the same. And so maybe that was more of the upset. And then maybe almost also more of a, maybe just like thought process differently. A different thought process. For you, you're like, I wouldn't mind if you treat your friends the way you want to be treated, just like you treat me. But for her, she wants to be special. And so it could also just be different thought processes going on how you express your love languages, basically.
Okay, so for this, it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like a differences perspective in like, what's ideal and what's like reality, right? So I feel like it's like that.
What's your ideal of how to treat your SO and your friends in your life?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like what works versus like what I think is like ideal, right? So what
would be ideal for you?
Or
what was?
I mean, my ideal was pretty much treating everybody kindly. I felt like that's fine. Like,
you gonna make out with your friends a bit?
No, it's not like that. It wasn't like I'm trying to make out with Tom.
Well, you gotta butter her up to make out.
I wasn't trying to, it's like replace Tom, I was trying to just treat everybody how I wanted to be treated, I took that ideal, I guess, to the extreme.
But don't you expect your significant other to prioritize you over their friends? Like, have
you wouldn't mind if she just treated you equally to all her
It's not like I didn't prioritize. It's not like I didn't prioritize them. I'm not saying I didn't. It's just that that's how she felt. Like,
well, then she's the problem.
James, stop flip-flop. No.
I don't know.
Just come to conclusions. Oh, God.
James, whose side are you on? I don't know.
I mean, I think if you can objectively say that you definitely prioritize her,
but how objective
over your friends, and and all the people can vouch for you. Oh yeah, let's say your friends can vouch for you, and her friends can vouch for you.
Sure, maybe.
Then I feel like she's the problem. Like, she just you guys is
But was that the case?
Like the need match level is not like not met. Like it doesn't match well.
I see. I feel like it was the case because the way I hang out with my SO is it's we hang out a lot. It's not like I don't hang out a lot with my like significant other,
Okay.
I mean, I do think seeing you romantically now, I do feel like you prioritize your SO, but has that changed from what you were doing then?
I told you I differentiate little things to see if it matters. So I try to like differentiate little things in a sense. I guess
you send the morning text to all your SOs now?
Sends a GM.
all my toms like, hey, what's up?
Or is it a chat GPT? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I just ask chat GTP to what's a good morning text to all my SOs.
But are you different now in like, I guess like, is there something that you permanently do differently now in your relationships that you weren't doing back then? Or do you think maybe in this case it was more of her not seeing your gestures?
I think I show more like maybe physical affection, and I show more like I try to be more expressive now on my emotions towards them, if that makes sense. So they kind of know. Like I try to give them the whole, 5. How many love languages are? I try to give them all of them. You know what I'm saying?
5.
I try to give them all of them. But
try to give them all of them.
That's fair. Yeah. It sounds like you're trying to compromise and kind of like try to show them in a love language. You're trying to figure out what their love language is and trying to, connect with them on that level and, giving to their love language. So maybe that was a little bit part of it too, where you didn't realize this was a big love language for her and whatever other many things like reasons why this could have happened, but you try to express yourself more so they know and that your message gets across in that way.
Yeah. But what do you guys think of this idea of reality versus idealism, in the sense that, James, would you be in a relationship, say, like, do you have core values where you are, like, it's kind of a red flag, right? Do you have, like, certain core values where it's like, oh, that's not going to slide with me? Do you have certain things like that?
What is your deal breaker red flags morally? Besides, I guess, the obvious, like, extremes.
Do you have anything like that?
I don't have anything. I'm willing to date anyone.
Oh, really?
Anyone. Shoot me a DM.
Okay,
I'm willing to
Lychee, what about you? Do you have core values that kind of like are deal breakers?
I think this is something, because I have like no dating experience, that I will definitely reevaluate when I'm dating. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of really specific moral values that if I find that me and my partner don't align, I'm not sure whether or not I could handle being their partner long term. And it does depend on the nuance, of course, but I do think my moral values are like a core part of me and my integrity, and being integrity is very important to me as a person. So if I, from my perception, see that they're not being that sort of a person at this kind of like seeing from my point of view, I do think that it is something that I would need to learn more from them about. But honestly, like, I feel like if it got to a point where I just morally disagreed, I don't think that's just a deal breaker then. So
you would never like take on someone else's like values, or is it they
have to? I could. I'm open to it definitely more now than I was 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I think it'll take dating for me to find that answer. And once again, kind of going back is like just a bunch of deliberation, because I feel like for a lot of people, your moral values are like part of your identity. Mm-hmm. And of course you do have identity shifts over time, and that, includes concepts and all of that. But I think it's very nuanced and it really depends what we're talking about.
So what do you think if like a person takes on someone else's core values and they are happy with the relationship, but they're more of just kind of saying, oh yeah, I could give this up. I could give that up. That's fine. I don't have to trigger this person this way, or I don't have to, do certain things. I don't have to have that. But at the end, they're happy.
Right. That's definitely something I deliberate a lot, because personally, that's not how I function. And so seeing that ideally, and coming back to like idealism, I would like a relationship where, especially if we're extremely different, which can be fun in its own way, where you learn more about yourself and them and what you possibly could shift your perspective on. But I would want a relationship to be full of compromise on both sides, where you're growing and understanding each other to a level where you can both equally compromise on your values if there are drastic differences.
Like a 50-50. You want a 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50. And especially in situations where your SO or the person you're meeting is like an opposite of you, where it's just like so many things are so different. Coming to a point of understanding each other and some sort of resolution and compromise from both sides as equally as possible. If you both are like pretty, if you feel that you both are pretty morally upstanding and, similar in genuine people, then you would hope that you could get to a point of understanding each other and expanding both your worlds. Whereas if there's someone who compromises a lot of what is their core values and they don't want to like rock the boat and kind of more conform to the other person's beliefs, that's just not my personal view on how I would want a relationship. I don't know like what's the right way or what's the wrong way, but this is definitely a difference of opinion here. But yeah, I don't know. James, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, James, do you?
But wouldn't you say, because you said you're pretty strong on your core values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you meet another, because you say you don't want to meet a guy that's just like willing to just kind of accept other people's view very easily, or not that way, but like you don't want someone that's like wishy-washy or like, with their own core values. But if you meet another person that's like really strong about their core values, and you are very strong at your core values, wouldn't that be unmatching because you're both just butting each other? Whereas like I feel like if a person that's like very strong like about one their values, then I think another person that's a little more relaxed and loose with their values, I think it's easier to make compromises then because one person is willing to make the sacrifices. And I think that's how it is in relationship.
So it's not 50-50, what you're saying?
I don't think it's ever 50-50 in any relationship. I think only way it can be 50-50 in a relationship is if two people are both really willing to accept others' point of view, and they always accept each other's point of view. And I think that's the only way you can be kind of 50-50. But two people who are strong-headed, I think it's hard for them to be 50-50 because they both want to instill each other's core value, right? Yeah. So I think it has to be more like one person has to make the sacrifice and be more accepting.
But I do have a question for someone that accepts anyone's core value, and for those to be a more, obviously there's less of this drastic difference in argumentative and maybe deal breaker kind of inducing styles. What, I guess it's a spectrum, of course, but like then to me, I kind of ask a question like, what are your core values that you're willing to just change them for another person? Because for me, some of my core values are like a part of me and my belief system as a human being, ethically, morally. And for someone to be as kind of like bring what you said, wishy-washy, to me that kind of indicates that maybe they don't know their own self-identity and core values. And if anything, there are spectrums, but if anything, someone with I way more appreciate someone who has very strong core values, because then I already know who they are and what they stand for. And of course, there's room for change on both ends. But to me, knowing someone with weaker core values makes me wonder if we're on the same page ethically as people, and how much of their selves and their ethics are they willing to sacrifice for other people. And I don't want to do that in certain scenarios for my ethics.
But the thing is, if you want to meet someone that's like really strong at their core, then I feel like, are you willing to make this like compromises that he says like I believe this and you believe this?
That would be interesting. We can have our
clash. So what
clash.
are you gonna? Yeah.
Yeah, I would honestly prefer to clash about it and fight it out, and not in a way where it's like, here's why you're wrong, but like,
what if you guys never find a conclusion?
Then maybe it's not meant to be.
See, that's what I mean. But if you met someone that's like more willing to make the sacrifice, you guys do reach a conclusion. So maybe it is meant to be then.
I think it's a balance because, and of course it depends, definitely. But I think it comes down to the one where it's like, maybe it's not meant to be. That would be more of like, I think this ethically, and this person doesn't really care. Like, okay, let's use this super obvious one that everyone, or most people hopefully, like, to me, cheating is just like messed up to do to your partner. And this is very extreme, but what if they believe like, no, cheating, like, what is cheating? Conceptually, as human beings, feelings are fluid and we can like multiple people at once. If it comes down to that, then for me, that's not meant to be, because it's like, hey, I just can't coexist with someone who emotionally, doesn't understand how I feel about this situation. And then I guess it kind of just broaches more boundaries. Like, hey, that's a boundary. For me, that's a no-no. For you, that's a yes. Then it's like, parting the ways would be the healthiest solution. But that's very extreme. So I guess, I don't know if you guys have any like kind of more, I guess, like less controversial examples, maybe.
I think, okay, I'm going to answer that too. But I think the key thing I'm trying to point out is this. I think people seek for certain aspect of a person, like a quality from another person in a relationship, right? But I think what a lot of people don't realize, with that, if you have that kind of perspective or personality or core belief, comes with another perspective that just comes along with it as a package together, like, that's the point I'm trying to make, is like,
it comes with territory.
It comes with territory, yeah. I think I think people forget and be blindsided because like, I only want this, and they don't realize that comes with like a lot of different things that may clash. I think you do have to be aware of that. A more specific example could be like something like a parenting, and something I feel like a parenting would be a good example, because you're already so deep into the relationship, you already have a child. Or something like that, right? That you could clash, right? You believe like you should be like very stern with your child, and then the other parent believes like you should be very like, no, just let them be, like let them grow, let the child be, let them grow up, right? And let's say you guys are both very strong in your belief, like I stand by my core values so much, I stand by it. I'm strong-willed. I'm not gonna let another person change my core perspective. And then you believe that way too, right? Then you guys gonna have so much clash on your parenting styles.
That's right? When divorce happens. Well, listen, I see what you're saying. In that concept, though, for that specifically, those are. I mean, I do see your point, but then also for me, it's like, I guess I would have much more to say after being in relationships, having experiences, and once I've brought in my mindset, then I'm sure I'd be a little more closer to your side of the spectrum, since you guys have been in relationships and had to make compromises. But this also a good reminder for me. It's like, these are things that definitely I would want to know for these really sensitive topics. What is their point of view on it? Like, for me personally, I'm pro gentle parenting. I'm anti spanking, et cetera, et cetera. And if I met a guy where he's like, no, I do the stern approach, I'm going to spank a child and give him timeouts, then we're going to talk about it. And if they're not going to budge on that, that to me feels like a deal breaker, because I wouldn't want to inflict that sort of pain on my child. From my perspective, sure, they have a different one, but it's just, yeah.
Okay, but then what about the scenario where the guy is kind of he has that perspective. He has those ethics of, I want to be more harsh on my child, but he is willing to compromise.
I would ask why.
He is willing to compromise.
Because he's like, oh, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And he takes on those values, So that's what I'm saying.
So exactly. So you do want a person that's like more less strong-willed about their
because he's not firm on his ground. He's willing to back up. He's willing to listen to you.
Exactly. See.
Yeah, I think it depends on the value itself and where you originally stood in your opinions. I
think what you're trying to say is definitely okay. No one wants someone that's like.
I don't want a yes man.
Just like no one wants a yes man, of course. But I think I think maybe but like everybody wants like this like perfect person. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It comes with a perspective. Like it comes with the territory.
Maybe then I'm the 70 and they're the 30. Maybe I am.
Like it comes with a perspective. Like everybody wants like a guy that's like, oh, like he's rich, he's smart, and he's nice, and he's like like nobody can have every single good qualities. Like it's like with certain good
humans,
quality comes with a certain negative quality that comes with it. You know, like a person
that's very
like
true. And I do believe humans are on a spectrum of good to evil, and we all have evil tendencies and good tendencies. And it is like a balancing act. And I know I've had very negative thoughts that I'm like, oh, I wouldn't like that if someone else thought this way. So,
honestly, so go date. Go date and find someone.
This is becoming a dating counsel now.
Honestly, Lychee, I go through the same thing because I'm very strong-willed too. I feel like all of us are very strong, like core values.
Yeah, but strongly opinionated too.
Yeah, I'm very opinionated, and I usually date like girls. Most of the girls I date are like less opinionated, and they're willing to take on to like my values. So, and it works out because we're not clashing the whole time, and they actually enjoy like kind of like hearing my values out. They don't take everything I say. They don't say like it's like I'm not like a Bible or anything, but they do kind of compare values, and whatever value they like the most, they take on. So it's kind of I think it's a good compatibility because you're not fighting all the time. You're not wasting your time fighting. You're wasting
unless you like that sort of relationship.
I guess so.
and I think it's really like it's very, very, very rare for you to be someone like you guys are both strong-willed and you guys just see eye to eye to eye to eye. Like you know, like that's like really good.
Tough.
That's really good, but that's really tough because like
what I'm hearing is I should just date another ENFP.
I don't know about that. I'm telling you right now.
I'm an ENFP and I'm just like, I don't see eye to eye everything with you.
Damn. Alright, is there any Tom ENFPs out there?
Yeah, Tom ENFPs out there.
Looking for an ENFP male that is willing to take on an ENFP female.
Into gentle parenting.
Gentle parenting. Yes. Anyone with gentle parenting. But I will say, that does remind me of my Tom because my Tom is different from me where they listen, they will hear you out on all your beliefs first, and they're more kind of not neutral, but they consider everything a lot. And they come from less of a point of, no, you're wrong, here's how it is, and more of a, why do you think that? And we do understand each other very well, and they do hear me out very well. So I do, and thinking of someone that I clash with a lot, we do argue a lot, and I don't know if we end up seeing eye to eye, but I think there are pros and cons to both. Yeah. So,
I mean, yeah, you should clash with other people to expand your knowledge and grow as a person, I suppose.
But
I suppose, Mr. Bigger Pie.
Lychee, I actually fall into the same trap where I'm hyper focused on these ideals and what I think I want, what I like. These ideals where it's like, oh, this will make like the perfect relationship. This idea will make the perfect relationship. This kind of concept will do this for my relationship. But in reality, I'm so hyper focused on this like little idea. And I'm saying like in my head, oh, we're not meeting this idea. We're not meeting this idea. But in reality, I might be happy at the time. I might like really care for the person. I might like enjoy spending time with them, but I'm super hyper focused on this and it's ruining my perspective. So I think that I
see that.
There's sometimes where we have to kind of shy away from ideals. They're cool ideas and stuff, but sometimes you gotta just like be in the moment and see how you actually feel. Like what is the reality of it? What is going on in right now, the moment right now? Are you happy? Yeah. Are you just fixated on this crazy, or not crazy, but like this perfectionism idea?
Yeah. Perfectionism. That's what it comes down to.
But
I definitely, that is a good reminder because it pretty much is like it's my perception. And even their words, actions, whatever, that's my perception of the situation. That doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what's happening. I could be like, oh, from these things that they're saying, I feel like they're like this. But this is once again only from my knowledge and my point of view. But from a more objective point of view, that's not what reality actually is. So it's kind of like two minds coming together and also opening and broadening your perspective to embrace other people. So I do think that's, I do see your points on that. And that does make a lot of sense. And with people who have had to do that, in relationships. So
I see. Yeah.
That's cool.
You guys have any other...
See, I just disrespect you. Now we can date, guys. The NFP males in my life. I'm just kidding.
Do you guys have any other ideas or concepts you want to add on to this podcast?
Oh, I have one question for you guys.
Okay.
What kind of relationship do you like? What is like not ideal, but like what do you think fits? Like after all we've talked about, what fits best to your style? Like what are you looking for this? Like I just joked that I'm the 70-30. Like what kind of relationship do you guys consider is the most considerable to you? Knowing what you know about yourself, but then also, the pros and cons of people being different and or, less confrontational, etc.
I think for me, there's patterns to certain people I date, definitely. And I'm probably similar to you in a sense that, I'm probably more 70-30 in the sense that, I am very opinionated certain times and I do have like these core values and things like that. Again, I think honestly, if you go out there in the dating world, you'll just naturally attract who you attract because people that are looking for like people that are willing to like compromise, they're looking for these strong core values that they're attracted to. So you're gonna attract them either way. So that's why I kind of look for nowadays just a natural relationship. I just see if we just naturally kind of like flow. If there's nothing like forced, anything like that, and we just naturally kind of like get along and, assess problems, things like that. What about you, James?
It's practicing the law of attraction. What about you, James?
Honestly, I don't know at this point.
James, are you jaded?
I don't really know. Think I haven't dated in a while. I think so. I might just be like a little bit because I haven't really thought about it too much either. Because I think I've also had a lot of perspective changes in the last few years. So once I find out, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, so
we're excited.
To be determined.
TBD.
Yeah. But just shoot me some DMs on my my IG and then
yes,
maybe I'll find out.
Yes, DM James and he sings, ladies. JT Music.
Check out his covers.
Okay, cool. So it seems like we have pretty much a lot of our memories is pretty much like a difference of perspective, kind of.
Perspective.
Yeah, with all of our Toms in our life,
all of our Toms in our life, we just need to see Tom's perspective.
Yeah.
Everyone think about your Toms.
Yeah. Everybody, just go out there, think of your Toms, take care of your Toms.
You missing your Toms.
Listen
go ask your Tom. Go ask their Tom. What's your perspective?
Yeah. But thank you, Lychee, for joining us on our podcast.
Yes.
Thank you guys for having me. This is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun for us as well.
We have socials. So we have the Memory Podcast. We have the Memory Club Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Apple Music, YouTube. So if you want to support us, just subscribe, follow. That will help us out a lot. Again, I'm Vit.
And my name is James.
And I'm Lychee. It's good meeting you guys.
Peace.
Peace.
Our intro music was produced by Nightwave.